I wanted to take a break from playing Civ and show off some other games that I'm a huge fan of. I'm going to start with this game, Solar Settlers. It's like a space card game where the goal is to settle a certain number of colonists within a certain number of turns. And so we're going to start level 1 as the humans. The first level is going to be really easy, so I should be able to pass well within the time constraints. But the idea is that as your level goes up, as you win games, the game gets harder. It gets more demanding. You have fewer turns to accomplish more, and you have to get a strong understanding of how the cards work together, of how colonist movement and settling works. And there are also other races that you unlock that have different mechanics, different homeworlds. So it's quite a fun game. It requires a lot of adapting to what you're given, while still trying to figure out the optimal way to achieve your goals. There are definitely some strategies which, if they're achieved, lead to basically limitless play. Like if I can get it to show me the scores, some of the high scores for like humans are pretty high, but for the Formid's ability is extremely high. So there's very big variation between the abilities of the various races. But I'll just jump into a game and demonstrate how the game works. Here we have one of the earliest human levels. Every time a colonist moves, it costs 1 hydrogen. At the end of each turn, all of the colonists that are out consume 1 oxygen each. If you settle the colonist, it won't consume this hydrogen, but it requires colonists to be active in order to use the abilities on the planets. So you have to strike a balance between colonists that you settle and colonists that you leave out. In the base game, in the non-expert mode, I tend to only really settle at the very end, because I want my colonists actively doing things. But in expert mode, colonists consume twice as much oxygen. So it basically forces you to settle your colonists early. These outer lying areas require certain security levels to access. Notice this card has 2 security, and if I get 3 security, I can spend 2 materials, metal, to gain 3 security in my homeworld, and that will allow me to explore these here, and it goes in outer rings. So you have 3, and then 5, and then 8, and when you activate the 8 ones, you get a card in hand. So I need hydrogen for movement and metal, so I'm going to start by exploring these worlds. This is open space. And the jungle world be a good place to start. Notice this one, if you have 1 colonist, you get 1 metal and 1 hydrogen. But if you have 2 colonists, you get 2 metal and 1 hydrogen. But you don't have to use both colonists. So I'm going to start by getting a little bit of metal from this one. I do have access to hydrogen here. These cards you can play on the tiles. And so they can only be played on a corresponding world type. So this gas world can only be played on the base gas world, this one, the deployment center. The way station can be played on open space. Later you get a lot of terraforming cards, but you unlock more cards as you go. This is the base card set. So there's not going to be a lot of very complicated interactions with this one. Basically my goal is to get a bunch of colonists out and active as quickly as possible. This one I'm going to leave. I don't want to use this colonist generating ability quite yet, so I'm going to end the turn here. I do produce 2 hydrogen at the beginning of each turn, so actually I am going to go ahead and use it. I have just enough oxygen to support this population. The jungle world is interesting because it actually provides less value if there's more than one colonist on it. So you want to move onto the jungle world, activate it, and then if you need to use it again, you can move on and then activate it. That would give you 5. But if you moved 2 on at once and activated them both, you would only get 4. So I do have a ready colonist, but I don't have any hydrogen to move him with. I could do this. I'm going to demonstrate this. I recycled that and it generated a hydrogen. The card recycle gain is random. It's not linked to the card. Every card you draw, you get one of these. And so I'm going to use that hydrogen to come up here and gain a little bit more metal. I'll end my turn. I gained a colonist here. I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 metal to get 3 security. And that will allow me to unlock to explore this tile. And I got an event. You encounter a large asteroid covered with ice. It appears to be composed of an unidentified type of metal. I can get a research sample, which is I draw a card. I can mine metals. I can trade 1 hydrogen for 3 metal. This is a pretty good trade. Or I can detonate and get 3 oxygen for 1 metal. I'm actually going to do this one. Oxygen tends to be precious in the early game. I'm going to move here. Notice this one, you have free moves off this sector. So it doesn't cost hydrogen to move this. I'll gain a card. This one's pretty good. It produces 1 card every turn it's on the field. But I can also recycle it to get another colonist immediately. I'm not going to do that. Instead, I'm going to explore a little bit. This is a little risky. Okay. The gas world. Gas world is good here. I'm going to see if I can find a jungle world. I need 2 more oxygen to support this. I'm going to go here. Okay, I found the jungle world, so I can get enough oxygen for my population. You know, this is a non-standard jungle world. You can get 1 colonist for the first colonist, but you can't move the exhausted colonists. So if I activate the first ability on a world, I can never activate that ability again on the same turn. I can only access the second tier. And you can't put more than 3 on a single space. So sometimes you can get blocked if there's 3 activated already on a square. You can't move through that tile to get anywhere. I am going to go ahead and play this one. Because card draw is always very powerful in games like this. I have just enough oxygen. Card draw is very powerful. More hydrogen is good to have. I'm going to move here, get a little more metal, and then I'm going to use that metal to build the starbase. In the starbase now I can move 2 tiles, move 2 spaces for 1 hydrogen. This works really well with things like the way station, where I can jump onto the way station, and then I can jump away for free. And so you can set up chains of way stations or other cards with this ability to easily explore the map. I need to activate this. I need oxygen very desperately, and I'm not looking at a map that has a lot of oxygen generating abilities on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set this here and generate oxygen with the first ability where I can pick And then I'm going to move this here and draw a card with the second ability and give me 1 metal and a card. So the Starbase right now is the only world I have down that has a place for colonists to settle. However, what I need right now are this. Perfect. Hydrogen. Now I have plenty of excess hydrogen. I don't have a lot of excess oxygen. So if I were to jump onto this tile and start producing colonists, I would need a way to make some oxygen that would justify that. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to explore using all this extra hydrogen that I have. So now I'm producing an oxygen on each turn. I'm producing an extra card on each turn. Card draw is very powerful in this game. This was definitely not the optimal way to play, but I will end my turn like this. Okay, I currently have 10 colonists out and lots of cards in hand. I have almost enough security to explore these ones on the end. So I will go here. I'll start with this move, get another card. I'll definitely place down the fuel depot because it produces hydrogen. But I could also trade it for another card. I'm going to test it. Perfect. Because this replacement doesn't have any activated abilities, I'm going to do this first. And then place the incubation chamber on that same tile. I need some oxygen here. I messed up a bit, actually. It shouldn't hurt me. I need a little bit more security. Alien Ruins are very powerful. It's a good way to get a bunch of cards in hand. But if you use the second ability, which is extremely efficient, it destroys the card. Which is fine. I'm going to use this to generate good card advantage for myself in this game. I might sacrifice this guy for some metal, but I don't want to. I'll do this instead. I need to place some cards. Cards that have free move off this sector are pretty strong, especially if you can chain them together. Unfortunately, there's no way for me to jump from the way station onto the Genesis vats. There's also no way for me to jump onto the Genesis vats, the water worlds, from any of the good population generation cards. So what I'll do instead, I'll just place this here. And now I'm going to settle. That will give me 1 security because of the ability here. And now I can move on to this tile and reveal this one. I'm going to do the same on this side. Again, I overdrew. Just simple mistakes, but it doesn't really matter what I do in this kind of position. This is an easily won game. I will place this here, I guess. And then I'll use these to just produce extra units. I'll place down... This is good. And I'll just toss this. I'll toss that. It's not very useful for me right now. In turn. Wait. Oh, that's right, this guy. In turn. I have way more colonists out than I need to settle, so I'll win on this turn. This is only round 4 out of 12. But if you have some idea of the strategy, the early couple of levels are really easy. And see, this propulsion gel plant is the same as the starbase. They have the same ability. They double the movement you can do with a single hydrogen. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab some hydrogen like this. And then I'll figure out a way to place... I'll settle this. And I'll settle this. Alright, so that's the first game. This game gets really hard. There are a ton of other card types. There are a ton of different synergies between the cards. And there are a ton of different racial abilities that are much more complicated than the humans. The humans just have homeworlds with an ability. And they have a bunch of different homeworlds. And the different homeworlds have different playstyles. So there is some variety with playing the humans. But some of the later races have much different gameplay styles. Like the Formids, every time you place a building on a tile, it produces a new citizen. That seems extremely powerful, but it can be hard to leverage effectively because it's difficult to deal with the oxygen count. It can be difficult to draw the cards needed to place all of them on the field, and they don't really have an ability on the homeworld itself that they can use like the humans do. So you can end up in a bad position with the Formids by overplaying your cards and messing up the existing synergies between the worlds. It's a constant adaptation of making sure that your colonists are not caught in bad positions, where you place a new planet down and suddenly your colonists take too much hydrogen to get to where they can do something useful for the board state. So I've played probably 30 or so hours of this game. I'm a really big fan of it. I'll play one more. I've unlocked Minos as a homeworld. Minos just clones. You use one guy and it creates another guy. And then you can do it one more time, but you can't do it a third time because then the extra guy would be blocked. You can only fit 3 on one world. You have an optional goal? Every time I finish this goal, I get these resources. So it didn't give me Minos this game, it gave me these. So I really want to build the starbase as quickly as I can, or the defense station, or both, which means I need metal. So I'm going to look for metal. Perfect. That gives me 4 metal. I'll put the starbase here, because I can jump from the homeworld to here. And so I put my utility cards on the jump over squares, and I try to put things like the way station, move 3 moves off this sector, on these squares, where they'll be able to jump to, they'll come from the homeworld, they'll jump directly onto the way station, and then they'll be able to jump again. It saves hydrogen, which saves colonist turns. I do need more oxygen. So I'll go ahead and do that. I'm going to go ahead and place this one too. Producing cards is very powerful, so I want to put that down immediately. I could have also tried to satisfy the goal on the first round, but I wanted to put these down to get the initial card advantage. Excellent. Deployment center. Okay, I'll go here and I'll explore this world. It's another gas world. Perfect. And then I'll do this. This is not quite as good as putting it 2 squares away from the homeworld, but it also gives me 1 security, so it was worth it, I think. The goal allowed me to survive this turn without actually getting oxygen with any of my colonists, which means that I can do something like this. Okay, I'm going to grab another citizen. Perfect. This gas world gave me another security. I mentioned before that alien runes are very powerful, so I'm going to use that tile. Propulsion, gel plant. I already have the starbase, so this is worthless, so I'll recycle it. Okay, good. Now I have an extra card producer. So now I'm drawing 3 cards at the start of every turn. I tend to prioritize that, but I messed up. I don't have enough oxygen for one of my colonists. So at the beginning of the next turn, it's going to make me kill one of my gods. Actually, at the end of this turn, so I won't have time to produce this. That's okay. I'll get rid of that guy. I don't need this at all. The Orbital Lab is actually a pretty good card. Okay. I'll show off this interaction. So there's 2 different cards here that both have free moves off this sector, so I can do stuff like this and go back and forth at no cost. Okay. Now I desperately need oxygen. Otherwise, I'm going to lose a lot more guys at the end of this turn. I don't have enough to support the full population of people that I've already used. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump over here. And that gives me tons of metal, which is good. So I don't need metal anymore, that's a low priority. A little more oxygen here. I'm going to place both of these down specifically so that I have enough security for the corner tiles. Okay, that's good. I have tons of metal. This is very efficient metal generation. And so this is like here. What I'm thinking of doing is placing the processing facility on this tile so that I can blow up metal to generate oxygen. But I'm going to need hydrogen next turn to finish out the game. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use these 2 chained free move tiles, move this here, put this down, blow up a metal for 6 hydrogen, and then move back onto this tile and blow up a metal for 4 oxygen. I still have 1 more colonist. and I have tons of hydrogen, so what I'm going to do is use this colonist to explore some of the map. I could use incubation chamber to produce more people on each turn, but I'm planning on basically winning the game on the next turn, so I'm just going to immediately put him down. And we got 2 alien ruins here. I'm going to use them both. I can have 6 cards in hand total. Not useful. This one is useful. It produces 1 hydrogen for that turn. This is totally mediocre, but it's good enough. I have 11 colonists out. I have 10 hydrogen. So if I make sure at the beginning of the next turn, I should be able to win the game immediately. Okay. Doesn't matter which one I pick there. This game should be over now. I'll place the Metropolis here. Settle. 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 Alright. So, this number goes up well into the 20s. And you end up with only like 6 or 7 rounds to do it. So you end up having to play even more efficiently than I did in this game, especially in expert mode where each colonist consumes 2 oxygen per turn. We'll get to that eventually. Anyway, this is the basic principles of the game. I think it's like $10 on Steam. I've had a lot of fun playing this. You rank up, you unlock new cards at each rank. If you have any questions about the game, you can ask. There's a Discord. The developers are pretty cool guys. They've made a couple of other games. I think they're all pretty good, but this one's my favorite. I'll be uploading some more footage of this game, maybe a few other games by BrainGoodGames, the company that made this, in the future. That is it for now, and I'll see you guys later.